Hello, and welcome to episode 60 of the Fiber and Dice podcast. I am your host, Rebecca. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Engineer Falcon. You can find my handspun yarn shop on Etsy as Bluebonnet Fibers. You can find my blog at bluebonnetfibers.com, and you can find our group, the Fiber and Dice podcast group, on Ravelry by searching for Fiber and Dice. So, if you have been with me since the beginning, you will notice that we are back where we began. This is the desk that I filmed the first couple podcasts in front of. Different space, different house, but same spot. And since I am filming the last episode of season 1, I figured we would go back where we started. So, that is where we are. What is in my mountain of conquered things this week? I have spinning done, maybe. It's a gorgeous red dyed by Fat Cat Knits. It's a 2-ply. It's about 185 yards. It's not solid red. You can see that there's lots of variations in color, lots of interesting things going on there. I love it. It's a gorgeous. I think the first time I spun this, I called it Hollyberry. And so I'll probably call it that again and put it up in the shop this week. So unless someone says, hey, I want Hollyberry, then it will appear in the shop and on Instagram when I put it in the shop. Books. I finished a book on, I don't know how many years we've been using the library that they've had Overdrive, but I have just now figured out how to use Overdrive to check out books from the library, and I checked out Vampire Academy. Oh, it was fun. It was fast. I enjoyed it, but it's nothing I would pay money for. Sorry if you're a big fan. I liked it. I liked it enough to check the second book out, but not enough to spend money on it. So I thought it was fun. Middle of late night, busy day, crazy kids. Just sit down and just read purely for fun. Definitely in that category. But again, like I said, I enjoyed it enough to take the next one out. So finished another book. Oh, Big Little Lies. This was recommended on one of the other podcasts. I did not write down who recommended it. So if it was you, thank you. I checked it out from the library too. I thought it was really hard. I thought it was kind of intense. And I was afraid some things were going to happen that I did not want to happen. And so I read it in like 48 hours because the engineer was out of town. And so I just read the whole time he was gone. I mean, around homeschooling and stuff. But while the kids had free time, I just sat and read. And I got really nervous that really bad things were going to happen. The bad things that I was afraid were not going to happen did not end up happening. So I'm glad I finished it. I almost put it down. But I enjoyed it enough to put on hold all of her other books. She wrote What Alice Forgot, and I have picked that up in Barnes & Noble I don't know, 10 times. I haven't bought it, but I've picked it up and thought, this is really intriguing. So when that was mentioned, and I remembered What Alice Forgot, and I'd been intrigued by that, this was the only one that was, this one, Big Little Lies had the shortest wait list. So it's the one I went ahead and grabbed. So those will be coming to my inbox eventually. I do like that with the checking out online, I don't have to remember to return stuff, and I don't have to go out and get them. So I like that it comes and auto checks out, and in 3 weeks, whether we've read it or not, it will go back. So I think I'm a fan. I think that's all I finished reading, all I finished spinning. I did not finish any knitting. Can you guys believe that? It's been over a week and I haven't finished anything, but I have made huge progress on the sock. It's really close. And, well, for a handful of reasons, but you won't see this one again because it's close enough. I will finish it over the Memorial Day weekend and leave it with my sister when we leave Lubbock. So I'm excited. This is sock 2. Twisted stripes on the Lavish base. I think it's called Lavish from Knit Circus is what this yarn is. And these stripy stripes, I love them. I love them so much. I do. I'm glad I've got 3 more pairs. Nope, 2. After this, I've got 2 more pairs dyed by her. I'm going to start doing washcloths for Christmas gifts. That will not be a spoiler to anyone who knows me because that's what I do every Christmas and people have asked for them. So If you're a regular gift getter from me and you didn't realize, sorry, spoilers, but I'll start doing those. Some of them Memorial Day weekend. I have some fiber on the wheel. It was not far enough to pull in here and show you. It's kind of in between. I'm almost done with the first ply, but not close enough to rest to finish for the podcast. But I'm trying to go thinner. Like I'm shooting for between 375 and 400 yards. So we will see how that goes. I'm excited about it. Lots of stuff in base camp. The cowl, it's up in this basket that I showed you last week that I'm doing for Harry Potter. The next clue for it comes out on Sunday. So I will pick that back up. And also on that day, we can start our missions for Order of the Phoenix. And that's a cowl for my mom in a really pretty blue yarn. Something's beeping, and I don't know what it is. Just a second. I mean, it's a notice that I've gotten messages or something, but I didn't even know I had anything turned on. Just a second. Okay, it's something I can look at in just a minute. It's nothing pressing. The kids are down at the pool with the husband, and so my son's never had a seizure at the pool, but I always get a little nervous when they're down there that that's going to happen. And I'm going to have to run down there and, deal with that. But, I mean, not that my husband couldn't deal with it, but I would still probably go down there anyway. But it was not my husband. So back to focused things. So I'm spinning that covered wagon yarn, and I will have it done hopefully next week, done and photographed. So I guess that wraps up Fiber and Dye Season 1. I look forward to coming back in a few months, starting Season 2. We have lots of thoughts and plans and ideas, and we've got a few months to incubate and hatch those and see what's going to come out of them. But I think that's all. So hunt me down other places. I don't want to lose touch over the next couple months. But Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, I will see you guys again this fall. Bye. So, end of Season 1, which means that we are going to go on hiatus for a while. At least June, July, and August, because we have a lot of changes coming up around here. The kids are starting into 7th grade, which is junior high for us. And we're starting a lot of new stuff. And it's going to be a new schedule, and our days are going to be longer. I know I say this every year, and every year it is, but this year we switch from what we have been doing to like we're adding Latin, and we are bumping up their math, and we're going to add we're switching from the kind of more fun sciencey things that we've been doing to more serious science studies. And they're starting a 2-year curriculum in writing, and I think it's just going to be very busy. My daughter, I think, is going to apply to be a GM on Gamed Academy, which is Minecraft homeschool that they do. And so our hours are going to be very busy. And so I thought it would be really good to pause while we got all that transition done. I'm not the most steady of podcasters anyway, and so I was afraid it would get completely lost in all of that. We might also have a move coming up. So if all that happens this summer, it's going to be really crazy. And so I wanted to take a couple months and just breathe and get all of that figured out, and just take a break. I've only been doing this 2 years. I know people do this for 7 or 8 years, but just take a little break and get all that real life stuff dealt with some. So we will be on a hiatus for the next few months. That also means that we will be suspending the hashtag Fiber and Dice Instagram challenge. And that's okay, because I have not done a great job of keeping up with it. And let me tell you what changed. I stopped multitasking in about March. Like, I really wanted to see if I could focus on just doing one thing at a time. And so that involved knitting and gaming. And I realized that when I'm knitting while I'm gaming, which I don't really have any problem with, except that it's this practice of single tasking, that was multitasking. So I haven't been fiber and dicing, and so I forget about it. I forget to look. So That is on indefinite suspension. Hiatus is not permanent. That's a definite, you know, chunk of time before we'll come back to regular podcasting. But hashtag Fiber and Dice. If you still want to use that, I would love to come and look, but I'm not going to be trying to keep up with it because, um, yeah, because I'm not doing that. So, will I start knitting and gaming again? Probably so, but not until I'm done with this little experiment on single tasking. The only exception to that rule is that when I knit or spin, I do sometimes put TV on, TV, podcasts, those kind of music, listening to music while I do chores, those kinds of things. But as far as like anything that involves any level of concentration, even just knitting up a stockinette sock, I am, I'm single tasking. I'm not doing those things on top of each other anymore. I have to say, I kind of like it. I kind of like being a single tasker. I've prided myself in the past on being a really good multitasker, and I am. I'm pretty good at it. But part of my mindfulness has been to just do one thing at a time. So Fiber and dicing together kind of slid. The other thing, we have not been gaming as much. We've still been gaming plenty, more than when we were non-gamers for sure. But with all the travel and all the craziness and Star Wars Battlefront and a renewed interest in Skyrim Online, Elder Scrolls Online, not Skyrim Online. Skyrim was not online. We haven't been gaming as much, and the engineer's been working really long hours, early mornings, later into the day. Just there's only so many free minutes, and we're trying to cook everything at home. We're venturing into doing a lot of cooking from scratch again. We've done that in the past, but we haven't in a long time. So our evenings just seem to disappear, and so we haven't sat down with as many games as we have in the past. So that's another reason there hasn't been as much fiber and dicing, because there hasn't been as much dice. Still lots of dicing, still lots of gaming, but not as much. So I know you're all dying to know, how do you keep up with me during hiatus? What all is going to be going on? There's going to be some cool stuff going on while I'm on hiatus. One, I'm going to continue. I talked about doing a knit along in June for the peppermint mocha socks. I'm still going to do that. I'm going to start a thread in the Ravelry group. I'm going to blog about it, fiberanddice.com, and then I'm going to be posting pictures on Instagram as I go. So I would still really like it if you would join me in that. There's not going to be prizes. It's not going to be anything formal like that, but I'm going to do that. And I decided, because there are other socks in there I'm really excited about, the whole time we're on hiatus, June, July, and August, I am going to do a different pair of socks. So let me look and see what they are so that you'll be ready so you can knit along with me. Oh, I rearrange stuff on my iPad. Do you guys ever do that? Think you're going to be really, organized and rearrange things, and then because nothing's where it used to be, you can't find anything. So despite technically being more organized, you can't find stuff. Oh, and apparently books on the iPad updated with the update, and now I don't know how to find anything. I found it. Got it. For the first pair of socks I'm going to be knitting, they will be the peppermint mocha socks, like I just said. And this is what they look like. Whoa! Don't steal that information that I just accidentally showed you. Go and get her. Go and buy her book. Don't steal that information. Or go buy the pattern, because we don't want to steal from Cece. Is the lighting was good for the yarn, but not great. The peppermint mocha socks are June. July is going to be the strawberries and cream frappe socks. So peppermint mocha in June. Strawberries and cream frappe in July. And in August, I am going to do, I'm excited about all of these, like sincerely tickled, caramel latte. So those are all three designed by Cece Ullman. They are part of the Coffee with Cece book, and they are individually available on iTunes. No, not iTunes. Oh my goodness, Ravelry. Oh, silly, so silly. So I would love for you to join me along with. I guess we need a hashtag. Um, why don't we hashtag it hiatus KAL? What do we think? Hashtag hiatus KAL, and we can use that for all of them. So anything you're knitting along with me during the hiatus, that's what we will hashtag it. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited. Some other things that are going to be going on. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you really should, because that's where all the yarn and everything that I read, lots of what I say on the podcast is already been on Instagram. So that's a really good place to keep up with us. The engineer, Charles, is CS Guiden on Board Game Geek. You can stalk us there and see what we're playing and what we're buying and all of that. And bluebonnetfibers.com. In the past, that has been a random place for almost all the episodes, and most of them have show notes, but not all of them. I am really hoping during this hiatus to start putting some more information up there, to talk more about my spinning, to talk about more how I spin, to show some of what I've got, some of what I'm working on, to show some stuff with my hand spun, to talk about the knit-alongs I'm doing, just to kind of get into blogging. I did a family blog for a long time. That's long since gone. I had it printed and then pulled it down. And then I have more than once intended to make the Bluebonnet Fibers blog more than just show notes. And so maybe this summer, while the kids they're taking a couple classes, well, mostly classes that they can do while, oh, no, that won't work. I was going to say while they're watching their classes, I could blog, but the Girl Geekling uses my computer. I don't know. We're going to figure it out, but I made a lot of friends over the last 2 years, and this is really fun, and I like to visit with you guys, and I like to see what you're all working on, so I hope that this break does not mean that we lose touch, because I would be really sad. And I'm kind of bummed about the break. It's a good thing, but I'm kind of sad too, so let's keep in touch so I don't have to be really sad, okay? Does that sound good? Okay. So sadness aside. I'm back. This is future Rebecca. Remember, she forgot to say something, so I'll stick this in somewhere in there where it belongs. Where else you can find me. We are hoping to start putting up some fun videos on YouTube. It's Fiber and Dice channel on YouTube also. But they're going to be little miscellaneous random things like games that we play or adventures that we're going on or things like that. Maybe things I'm doing. I'll talk about the knit along, maybe some on there. But not something I want to play Libsyn like hosting fees for. It's not going to be a regular podcast kind of thing. And there might be some periscoping that ends up on there. But that's the other place you can keep up with us, is on YouTube. So I will let it. Now back to your regularly scheduled program. Gamerly News. Welcome to Gamerly News. No, that's not how I say it. How do I say it? And now it's time for Gamerly News. I've been letting the engineer say it and I forgot. That's crazy. I'm going to have to take that back. That's mine again. We started a new game this week. And I am really in love. And it led to what I want to talk about before we go on break. We played Time Stories. Time Stories is a scenario-based game, kind of in the family of legacy games. Like we've been playing through Pandemic Legacy. It's kind of like that. It goes into a category that Charles and I are calling campaign and legacy games. These are my favorite kinds of games, some of my favorite games. Pathfinder, the card game, has been on our 10 by 10 multiple times. It is a scenario game. You play through specific storylines, and without those storylines, there's not much game there because you're fulfilling specific story plots to, you're exploring a certain location, you are doing a certain thing. So that game is intensely centered around the story. RPGs, we're playing D&D now, Dungeons and Dragons. And again, that is tightly centered around the story. In fact, that's almost entirely story with some really fun dice rolling. So, what else do we play? Lord of the Rings Living Card Game is definitely a story campaign driven game. Without setting up that specific scenario for that game, there's nothing to do. You can build a deck, but to play it, you have to play the next piece of the story or a piece of the story. The same with Mice and Mystics and its expansions. Campaign story driven, you play through a story. Legacy games, and I know we've talked about these before, but Risk Legacy, which I have not played, and Pandemic Legacy, you play through. They have counterparts that do not have a story component, but the story component makes it pretty much consumable. When you play through Pandemic Legacy, you can technically still play a game of regular Pandemic on the board, but you've really used up the game. Time Stories is similar to that in that you buy, I think it was $65 for the base for Time Stories, and it comes with one scenario in it. What's interesting about this is the story behind Time Stories is that you're time travelers, and people have either messed with or accidentally damaged time streams. And as that happens, things start to unravel. So you sign up to be a time agent, and you, not your body, but your consciousness is sent into different times and realities to fix problems that are there. And so you set up the board and you have a deck. And the first one we are in an insane asylum. And so there are different rooms. And so you go back, and when you travel, you possess the body of someone that's in that current location. That way, if something happens to them, nothing bad happens to you. Sounds kind of sketchy to me, but it makes a great game mechanic. So you pick someone in that time and place, and you play as that person. And you have a certain number of time units, and different activities that you do consume some of those time units. And when you're out of time units, if you have not solved it, your run is over, and you have to return back to the pods. And when you come back, you will have to start over. So basically, you're playing through the same scenario, the same story, until you get it right. And then once you've done it, then you're done. And it's not going to hold a lot of replay value. But they have already released 3 more scenarios for it. So I'm really excited. We had a lot of fun. We played Saturday and Sunday of last weekend, and it was brilliant. I liked it very much. So over Memorial Day, I think we will probably finish up Pandemic Legacy. And then we will throw ourselves further into Time Stories. So, though a Pandemic Legacy, I can recommend Time Stories now. It's great. Campaign driven. Oh, we do have a couple other, the Dungeons and Dragons board games, not Dungeon, like it's a long, skinny, geared a little younger box. But Wrath of Ashardalon and Temple of Elemental Evil and Castle Ravenloft and Legend of Drizzt are also campaign-driven stories that we have enjoyed very much. You pick up a certain scenario, you can play through as a campaign, or I think you can play like the individual scenarios. You don't have to play them like all in story order, but you can if you want to. Even like Mansions of Madness and Betrayal at House on the Hill all still have that story scenario-based setup. And those tend to be my favorite. Arkham Horror, Eldritch Horror, same thing. You set up to a specific scenario and you play through it. The scenarios in those are a little more replayable than some of the others. I think we've only gone back and replayed scenarios in Mice and Mystics once or twice because, well, we have 2 expansions, and between the 3 boxes, there's like 25 or 30 stories, so we're not anywhere near finishing those, much less going back and replaying them. But when we play with someone who's new, sometimes we do go back to a previous, one of the very first stories, because they're easier to explain. Because as you get further in, you add more elements and you add more challenges and your characters evolve and those kinds of things. So I think that we we've gone back occasionally, but not too often, even in my mystics. So if you really like that storytelling element, um, Mysterium, we played Mysterium a couple weeks ago. The storytelling in it is important, but it's not the same kind. It's not the same kind of story. Dixit, again, there's a story element there, but it's not like a campaign. It's not like a continuing ongoing story. This is where we see board games borrowing very heavily from RPGs, which to me is kind of the heart of all of this. That's where so much of this started. And with, fantasy, epic fantasy literature and space opera and these great, big, huge stories, and taking that idea and turning it into a game. And I love it. I love it so much. So there is another one coming out that I'm very excited about. It is called, let me look, because I've said the name wrong 2 or 3 times because I keep confusing it with a different game. Pulling up, it's called Seafall. Pulling it up, I can show you the board for it, the box for it. Come on. Seafall, it is actually a legacy game. So that tells you that it's going to also, it's going to be a playthrough type game, not a playthrough and, play over and over and over. And but what I think is very intriguing about it is it is not based on a previously standing game or storyline. Like, it's a new story, it's a new game, it's a new gameplay, but it's also a legacy game. I don't know. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be really cool. So, and I mean, hello, that cover art, we call that mating plumage. Like, does something appeal to me when I look at it? Games and books that has pretty mating plumage. The cover of it makes me go, oh, I want to play this game. I want to buy it now. Shut up and take my money. So that is, yeah, that's exciting. So I think that's about all I have to say about legacy games. We have made some progress on our 10x10s, and no, we're not doing 2x2, 365s, all of that, but nothing great or unusual. We haven't played. I can't decide if I'm hot or cold today, so I've like wrapped up and unwrapped like 4 times. Sorry. Yeah, just nothing really exciting to report there, so we haven't. I don't think we're backing anything new on Kickstarter right now. So, oh, ask me anything. I was asked about my ending Lord Willing to the Creek Don't Rise phrase. I have heard that on my whole life. It's not something I made up. I will tell you when it stuck was when we were we were living in North Carolina, and no, we were living in Corpus, and we were re-listening to, well, for me, it was listening, I'd read them before, but it was the kids' first time through Little House on the Prairie. And one Christmas, the creek rises, and no one can get across the creek. And it's a great story. But someone said that phrase to me, like, right before we listened to that. And so, like, that's when it really clicked. Lord willing and the creek don't rise. Like, the creek rising stops you from getting stuff done. And, of course, Lord willing can also stop you from getting stuff done. So it just kind of clicked. And so I've been saying, Lord willing and the creek don't rise. Also having a son on the autism spectrum, he very much likes things to be in order and to happen like they're supposed to. And so that phrase, again, I say to him a lot, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, like, this is the plan. This is what I want to do. But if things go really, really bad, I might have to change the plan. And I don't want to. It will take an emergency to change it. But let's talk about what might happen if we have to change it. Instead of saying that, now he knows when I say, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, that means this is what we want to do, but we're not going to get so heavily invested in it that if it doesn't happen, we're devastated forever because creeks rise and cities get washed away and life is just very short and fleeting and temporal and you just don't know. So, because when he was little, things like watches dying would like devastate his whole life. And so that's something we've really had to work on. Things changing and plans changing and, so that's where that phrase came from. It's maybe a Southern phrase. If I had to guess, I would say it's a Southern, you know, pioneery, old, Southern kind of thing. But I can't, I can't promise that. But I hear it more in the South than I suspect. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time up north, but I don't think it's a Texas thing. I think it may be a Southern thing. Or I might just be spouting utter nonsense now, and everything I said is false. So there's that possibility.